Hello, my friends. The activity on the front lines is not decreasing, and with each passing day, the situation is getting worse. The situation with drones is also very difficult, but the fight continues. At the same time, more and more warnings are appearing about a new shelling from the Russian side, as the energy ceasefire has already ended. Since early morning, activity by Russian Tu-95 MS strategic aviation has been recorded as part of preparations for a missile attack, monitors report. 4 aircraft are relocated to the Engels and Olenya air bases to be loaded with cruise missiles. The following strike assets may be involved in a combined missile attack: up to 8 Tu-95 S bombers, up to 7 Tu-22 M3 bombers, up to 10 MiG-31K aircraft, a number of Iskander ballistic and cruise missiles, and a large number of unmanned aerial vehicles of various types. However, as we can see, the shelling is expected precisely ahead of the negotiations. Late last night, Zelensky reported that exact dates for the talks have been agreed upon.
There was a briefing from our negotiating team. An agreement has already been reached on holding a trilateral meeting at the appropriate level. This meeting will take place next week, as planned, on Wednesday and Thursday, in the Emirates, as last time. I just spoke with Rustem Umerov, and I have scheduled a meeting for tomorrow to agree on the framework of the discussion and prepare everything.
Moreover, due to strikes on mines in the Dnipropetrovsk region, it's been reported that the first attacks on the energy sector have effectively begun. Starting today, Russia has resumed energy terror. Throughout the day, coal mining facilities and sites in the Dnipropetrovsk region that supply fuel to thermal power plants have been under drone attacks, local media report. Drones are currently carrying out a massive attack on Pavlograd, where critical infrastructure facilities are located. Meanwhile, in an interview with a foreign media outlet, Vitali Kim stated that the war must be stopped and that people matter more than territory. A peace agreement must be signed because Ukraine is exhausted, said Vitali Kim, head of the Mykolaiv Regional Military Administration. Personally, for me, victory means the 1991 borders, but everyone is already tired. Territory is important, but the lives of citizens are more important, he added. Friends, do you support what Kim said? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's move on to the situation along the front line, starting right at the border. In the Sumy direction, the Russians are carrying out attacks near the village of Yablonivka, but they haven't been able to advance further. At the same time, strikes on railway infrastructure continue in the Sumy region. For the second day in a row, the Russians have deliberately targeted civilian railway infrastructure in the Sumy region, said Deputy Prime Minister for Restoration Oleksiy Kuleba. A series of drone strikes on the Konotop station and locomotive depot has continued since last evening. Railway tracks, the station area, the repair workshop, and the depot's administrative building were damaged, and fires broke out. A fire train was deployed to deal with the aftermath. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians are also launching new strikes on Kharkiv, and impacts were once again recorded last night. Meanwhile, along the front line, the Russians have claimed that they have captured the village of Zeleny. So far, the Ukrainian side hasn't confirmed this information, so we are waiting to see how events develop. If Russian forces also manage to move closer to the city in the Kharkiv direction, they may begin using FPV drones in Kharkiv as well. And it appears this is exactly what they are planning to do. In the Vovchansk area, the Russians continue to advance quite actively. They assault Staritsa, Gravske, the village of Vilcha, the outskirts of Vovchansk and Vovchansky Hutory. The situation is difficult, but so far there have been no major breakthroughs here, and fighting continues. Along the border, the situation in the village of Krughle remains uncertain as Russian forces continue the attacks there and claim successes. Most likely, both Krughle and Nestorne are in the gray zone, but Ukrainian forces are not allowing the Russians to gain a foothold, destroying their groupings with drones. In the direction of Velykyi Burluk, the Russians are attempting to break through toward Kolodezne, but activity there is minimal and there have been no changes to the front line. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians are attacking Petropavlivka, Peshchane, Kurylivka, Novosinove, and Glushkivka. The Russians are now trying to advance at any cost, since Putin has already been reported as having captured Kupiansk-Vozlovy. In reality, however, this area remains under the control of the Ukrainian forces, and over the past 24 hours, there have again been no changes. All attacks have been successfully repelled. In the Borova direction, the Russians are assaulting Novoplatonivka, Shaykivka, Novosergiyevka, and Stepove. Here, they have managed to push forward quite significantly from the outermost front line, causing the gray zone to expand considerably. However, Ukrainian forces are not allowing them to entrench themselves, so for now there are no changes here either. In the Lyman direction, the Russians are pushing from Zarychne toward the city. They are also assaulting Stavky, Drobышеvo, Novoselivka, and advancing in the area of the village of Seredny. However, only tactical gains by Russian forces are being recorded near Lyman. They are trying to take up positions in forest belt and entrench themselves there, but Ukrainian forces are eliminating them in those areas. As a result, there are still no major changes along the front line. In the Sloviansk direction, the Russians are assaulting Dronivka, and also Dibrova, attacking Riznakivka and advancing across open fields toward Alexandrivka. At the same time, shelling continues at maximum intensity. Drones are operating along all roads to control the entire logistics of the Ukrainian forces. As a result, holding the defense is becoming more difficult with each passing day. However, as of today, there have still been no breakthroughs here. In the Kramatorsk direction, the Russians are assaulting Orikhovo-Vasilivka, but so far all attacks are being repelled and the front line remains unchanged. In the Kostyantynivka direction, the Russians are pushing past Chasiv Yar and assaulting the outskirts of Kostyantynivka, Pleshiyivka, Ilyinka, then Stepanivka, advancing toward Mykolaipolia and in the area of Ivanopilya. Overall, activity here remains extremely high as before, and Ukrainian forces soldiers report a difficult situation in the city since Russian forces are attempting to advance in small groups. However, so far they've been destroyed and there have been no changes along the front line. In the Dobropillia direction, the Russians are pushing toward Torske and assaulting Sofiyivka, Ivanivka, Nikanorovka, and Bielitske. Russian forces have also claimed the capture of the village of Sukhetske. However, the Ukrainian side hasn't yet confirmed this information, so the front line remains unchanged. In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians are assaulting Rodinske, pushing into the village of Hryshine from several sides, and a significant number of attacks are also being recorded along the western flank. Despite the high level of activity, they haven't been able to advance further. In the Novopavlivka direction, the Russians are pushing past Muravka and assaulting Novopavlivka and Filia, but so far there have been no changes here. In the direction of the settlement of Pokrovske in the Dnipropetrovsk region, the Russians are assaulting Alexandrograd and pushing in the areas of Vishneva and Danilivka. However, there have been no changes here today. In the Huliaipole direction, the Russians are actively attempting to assault Staroukrainka and Zaliznichne. They're also pushing toward the village of Myrne. It's clear that their plan is to straighten the front line for a further advance west toward Zaporizhzhia. Attacks also continue in the areas of the villages of Zelene, Svatopetrivka, Varvarivka, Dobropillia, and Tarnovate. However, at this time, there have been no new breakthroughs, and Ukrainian forces fighters describe the situation as follows. The Russians are actively attacking the line Tarnovate, Ostapivska, Vidradne, Kolomytsi at the junction of Zaporizhzhia and Dnipropetrovsk regions. Attacks are so intense that there have already been several clearings of Tarnovate alone. Tactically, nothing is new. Infiltration in small groups, 360-degree defense, further build-up, second echelon approach, consolidation, and continued advance. The importance of this line for us is that it prevents the Russians from conducting active operations directly in the areas of Novomykolaiivka and Pokrovske. Losing this line would increase the level of problems and allow the Russians to fight for Pokrovske and later for Novomykolaiivka. These settlements are currently key strong points that prevent the Russians from entering operational space, directions toward Vilnyansk, Zaporizhzhia, and Pavlograd. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians are intensively shelling Zaporizhzhia and nearby settlements. FPV drones have also been recorded in the city, which clearly indicates a worsening situation. Meanwhile, on the front line, according to an official statement from the General Staff, the Russians continue to assault Stepnohirsk and Primorsk, but so far they haven't been able to consolidate further. In the Kherson direction, the Russians are so far only carrying out shelling with no new offensive actions, and there have been no changes over the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, the German Minister of Defense said that if Germany stops its support, Ukraine will perish.
This is exactly why it is so important that we, as the Federal Republic of Germany, clearly stand with NATO, support Ukraine, even if it costs a lot of money. But I will also say this, stopping support will have consequences. First, Ukraine will perish tomorrow, and second, it will cost us far more than supporting them now. Ladies and gentlemen, also, Frankfurt has the largest economy in Europe and the third largest in the world.
Friends, do you agree with this statement? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.